All right, I'm back with another throwback video featuring again the late comedian Patrice O'Neal back on Fox News. This time, though, he's alongside Hannity and Colmes. In addition to those three, there was also Dr. Marc Lemont Hill and a man by the name of Armstrong Williams. And all the men involved had a sit down where they discussed and addressed the Don Imus incident, in which he himself said some racial or racialized comments in reference to the Rutgers University women's basketball team. So now we're going to take a look here at what those comments were and how each and every party involved reacted.
Bitch better have my money.
It's our top story tonight. The whole country is buzzing following Don Imus's comments on his radio show about the Rutgers University women's basketball team.
That's some rough girls from Rutgers, man. They got tattoos and some hardcore hoes. That's some nappy-headed hoes there.
Imus had apologized for the comments at length on his radio show this morning.
11 seconds.
I'm sorry I did that. I'm embarrassed that I did that. I did a bad thing. But I'm a good person.
And then this afternoon, Imus appeared on the Reverend Al Sharpton's radio program to explain himself and made some more comments that some people say could be just as bad as the original one.
It's like the old country song, God may forgive you, but I won't. Jesus may love you, but I don't. So I can't get any place with you people, but I can get someplace with Jesus.
Who is you people, Mr.
You and this woman I'm talking to.
And just a short time ago, CBS Radio announced that Imus has in fact been suspended from his radio show for 2 weeks. Also, NBC News suspended their television simulcast of Imus's program. President of NBC, Steve Kappas, released the following statement. Quote, beginning Monday, April 16th, MSNBC will suspend simulcasting the syndicated Imus in the Morning radio program for 2 weeks. Now, this comes after careful consideration in the days since his racist, abhorrent comments were made. Don Imus has expressed profound regret and embarrassment and has made a commitment to listen to all of those who have raised legitimate expressions of outrage. In addition, his dedication, in his words, to change the discourse on his program moving forward has confirmed for us that this action is appropriate. Our future relationship with Imus is contingent on his ability to live up to his word. Joining us now with more on this developing story is Dr. Marc Lemont Hill of Temple University, radio talk show host, nationally syndicated Armstrong Williams, and right here in our New York studio, comedian, radio personality Patrice O'Neal. All right.
What's up?
How you doing? Welcome back. Good to see you. Did the CBS and NBC do the right thing?
No. What are they accomplishing after 2 weeks? And what are they accomplishing? What are y'all trying to accomplish?
Go after him.
Easy. What they're looking to accomplish with this whole, Don Imus situation back then is the same thing they're looking to accomplish today, in which any and all comments that are viewed as being racially insensitive or offensive, homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic, chauvinistic, any and all of these buzz terms that's being thrown out rapidly by the far left is where people who say any of those things that in their minds check off everything on the list, they pretty much have to go on an apology tour. Like with Don Imus, with a Kevin Hart, right? And other celebrities or notable figures who have come under the fire in recent years, right? And that's where we are right now, to where you can't say how you really feel, you can't express yourself and for how you see fit, and you're just being who you are. You're being you. That's where you are, and because of that, you pretty much have to play a character or a caricature of yourself, right? And to where you pretty much, you can't live your life for you anymore. You have to pretty much live your life for everyone else. And by everyone else, I'm referring to the woke mob, the alphabet mafia, and those associated with them, like the likes of, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, you name them. And 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 here's the kicker, though: none of these groups that I mentioned can ever be pleased, appeased, or happy. And I say that because 9 times out of 10, people like that wake up every morning looking, and I do mean looking for something to be offended about. And that's not a way to live, man. It's understandable that everyone is offended by something, all right? But to keep constantly and continue looking for something to be upset about, it's just going to make your life worse, right? To the point you can never really live life to the fullest. You can never be happy. You can never be peaceful. You can never be content with your station in life, with the way things are, right? Not to say there can ever be, improvement that you want in life, but to always just basically be just unhappy. Like, nah, man, that's not a way to live, man. Because on top of that, it's downright exhausting, is what that is. Definitely. No way to live.
I don't understand
where
this is going.
And so, no, seriously, you don't find anything wrong with those comments?
It's something wrong with the comments, but you act like Don Imus and Kramer are like malignant spots, but the whole country.
I didn't even give you my opinion yet.
White people, I know what your opinion is, John.
People.
Yes, and that whole thing you read was all like abhorrent.
That's what NBC said.
Nobody black is saying that.
That's because they were. That's because those comments were abhorrent, and the reason why we have to defend these young women is because no one else will. The reason why we have to punish Don Imus is because if we don't stand up and speak out, no one else will. And comments like this will continue to be mainstream in public space.
Well, what if this was your daughter?
Well, before they continue on, let me say, first off, I can understand from a perspective, to a degree of where Marc Lemont is coming from, in which, if someone keeps continually saying things that are viewed as offensive and nobody stands up and says anything about it, then it's going to keep continuing, and that is true. But you have to understand, to what degree should people be offended, first off, right? I mean, in regards to nappy-headed hoe comments or or any other insensitive or offensive remarks, I mean, okay, yeah, people could take action, but is everyone offended by this stuff, or is it more so the very vocal portion, particularly within the Black community, and again, these other groups that I mentioned previously that they're associated with? Because it makes it to where it seems as though they put themselves on a pedestal in which they think that they can speak for everyone else, even when people out here, fully functioning people, have their own minds. All right, it's just that it's just that for the most part they don't really, want to or have to deal with all that craziness. They want to just go about living their lives, and as they should. Now, in regards to this notion about Black women, I've heard this before, particularly from some other content creators, in which they themselves speak about the issue, and we know for a fact that definitely Black women were definitely not protected in the 50s, and the person who was talking about that was Malcolm X. All right. And that's definitely because in the 50s, and in some cases further back, is when Black women were not being protected. All right. Especially when it came to certain democratic or liberal policies such as the War on Poverty or the Great Society by LBJ, which made it to where black men who were husbands and fathers got kicked out the home, and then the government stepped in and became a new husband and father and, gave financial assistance to the woman. And that's why, with that, to this day, you have modern day black women who are definitely protected, not just by the government, but other known entities such as the police force, the judicial system, particularly when it comes to child support, and corporate America. All right. So the black woman is definitely being protected today with those entities in mind. Now, as black men, right, or men period, who are not being protected by any of those things, because despite the fact that as men, quote unquote, toxic masculinity, which is really just masculinity, assertiveness, testosterone, or manhood is being, demonized, especially when any man shows it whatsoever. Despite all that, society still wants us as men to perform our role. Our traditional role as being the leaders, as being the providers for ourselves and for our families. And, which is definitely the case. But come on, you can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Which one do you want? Do you want us to have, do you want us to be men or not? Because a lot of this stuff is confusing, man. Oh. But anyway.
Who worked so hard, reached the championship, and some dopey radio host says something like that. You wouldn't like it.
First of all, have you had any of those girls on?
We'll invite them on.
What do you think?
They've commented to NBC in New York, and they're furious.
Of course, that ain't the real.
Those are their words.
What do you think they really said when they heard that? They didn't go, "Oh, that's outrageous." They went, "I know he didn't call me no nappy-headed hoe." That's what they said. I know that cracker didn't say nappy-headed hoe. That's what they said. They wasn't outraged.
Yeah, but we can't base our indignation on those 8 young women. It's quite possible, because of the way black women are treated in America, that they were used to hearing such things. But it's still inappropriate. We cannot allow our own dignity to be assaulted in that way without a response. And my response doesn't hinge upon those 8 young women who were disrespected. Even if they weren't insulted, I am.
Dr. Hill, let me.
Well, here's the thing. I can kind of see the point you're making, Mark, but let's be real. In regards to those 8 young women, that were allegedly victimized. How do we know for a fact that the way they felt was how black women, for the most part, felt? All right. Again, this is what you could. This is the kind of the trickery to a degree to where, particularly on the left side, right, in which they tend to always try to put everybody into a specific box and think that people are supposed to operate off of groupthink, right? If somebody thinks a certain way and they think that cases like this happen and they themselves feel like they're outraged or offended, that everybody else that looks like them is supposed to be offended, even though they themselves might have other perspectives, and which normally they do. And not to say that they don't empathize, but they see both sides of the story instead of just one. Right? So you have to be careful of that, man.
Answer this. All right. So he admits it was wrong, outrageous. These are his words, not mine. Over the top. He has apologized. He's promised to make good. He's now been suspended. Should he be? Are you saying you want him fired?
Absolutely. I think I'm happy that CBS has stood up. I'm happy that the network NBC has stood up and said, look, this is punishable, and they're giving him 2 weeks. But 2 weeks is insufficient. We cannot allow this type of thing to happen. Giving him 2 weeks only enables someone else to do the same thing. All the attention he's garnered, all the promotion he's going to get, all the free publicity. They say no publicity is bad publicity. He's going to have a job. At the end of the day, he should not.
There's no way that and then we'll get back to you, Patrice. Armstrong?
Well, before Armstrong speaks, I got to say, first up, Mark stated that despite being Don Imus is being suspended for 2 weeks, that he felt that he should get fired. Are you sure about that, bro? Okay, because keep in mind, this happened way back in 2007, right? Keep in mind, Marc Lemont Hill is the same man who, 11 years later, got fired for comments that he made in regards to Israel and their policies and practices against Palestinians, in which he himself advocated for Palestinian self-determination and equal rights. Now, if you've those who've seen the incident and probably read about it, what really got him fired were the 6 words that he said, which were, from the river to the sea, which was seen as both offensive and anti-Semitic. So I say that to say this: you have to be careful with things that you say, wanting to wish this stuff on people, because like karma, or like that metaphorical like boomerang, what you put out eventually is going to come back on you, and then you'll be the same one who's complaining about unfairness and looking for justice, and for the most part, it's going to fall on deaf ears.
Well, listen. What he said was disgusting. It was a horror. It was terrible. It's very offensive. But the sad news is that this is what Don Imus does. He said things about Venus and Serena Williams. He said things about Gwen Ifill. He said things about others.
Should he
talked
be fired?
about his bosses. He's talked about Jews. He talks about everybody. This is what he does.
Armstrong and Talon, welcome back to our show. Do you think it's appropriate?
May I finish? I did not interrupt
CBS?
you. I did not interrupt you. May I finish?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. He talked about all these people. They have allowed this to go on. I don't believe in censorship. I believe in the ultimate freedom of speech. I think the marketplace should decide. Certainly, CBS Radio and everyone else has a right to suspend him, to send a message that after many warnings, they will not tolerate this any longer. But firing him, and then the other thing we're doing, we're setting another precedent. Don Imus is not the only shock jock who use this kind of terminology and these racist remarks. There are other people that use it. You set a dangerous precedent when you say that someone like Don Imus should be fired, because there are a lot of people out there who have not to look like Don Imus. It's easy to fire people like Don Imus and Savage and others, but we got to hold everybody to the same standard. We must establish what is the standard.
Let's
fire anyone who makes racist remarks. Let's fire all of them.
Hold on, Armstrong.
I want to say I could definitely see, between Armstrong and Marc Lemont, Armstrong is definitely more of the balanced, a little bit more nuanced of the two, right? Because and in regards to Don Imus, he's kind of somebody. He's similar to Donald Trump, in which he talks about everybody. So that would make both of them, equal opportunity offenders. So if anybody can get it, everyone can get it, right? So, hey, you want equality, right? So, there you go. But going back down to Patrice's point, when you asked the question, okay, like, what's the plan? In regards to after Don Imus gets fired, what's the plan? Well, again, the plan overall is for anybody, again, who says something that could be seen as unsavory or unsettling. Not only does people get quote unquote canceled, but for the most part, they look to get ostracized from society altogether. And that right there, that's the basic level of it. We know what the true end game is when it comes to people being ostracized from society, right? But that's. That's neither here or there, right? That's another conversation for another day, all right? But anyway, let's go ahead and get back to what these men are saying.
Let's fire all of them then. I have no problem.
And then what?
Are you offended?
I'm not at that, because first of all, nobody except for me and the good doctors under 60, and none of you know what funny is. Like a doctor.
Was that fun? Was it funny what I
said? To say nappy-headed hoe
was it funny?
Is hilarious. But in
that's
context
tragic.
of
hold on.
context of a comic, You should be able to explore any words you want to say. He messed up.
Would it be different if a black person said it?
Of course. I could say nappy-headed hoe all day. But
right.
I want to be able to call white girls straight-headed hoes anytime I feel like it.
Right.
Anytime.
And would you?
Of course.
And should you be punished for it?
Of course not.
Right. So, Dr. Hill, are we...
Exactly. In other words, hey, that's why there's that old saying out there that it's not always what you say, but it's how you say it, right? And that's why, again, like I mentioned in the first Patrice video that I did, nuance and context are very, very important, because when you have those two taken away, which they're definitely looking to do right now, if they haven't already completely done it, is pretty much you can't really use this. You can only use discretion. You can only use discernment. You can't no longer use critical thinking skills to decipher what someone says, to see what they really meant by it, as opposed to what they're just saying, just for shock value. That's the end game right there in regards to cancel culture. All right. But what's interesting is that regular people out here can't really express freedom of speech. Well, not to the degree that they could before, but the very ones who are looking to quote unquote try to take away freedom of speech, I'm pretty sure they themselves are utilizing that same freedom, and they have yet to suffer the backlash that many of us are suffering. Particularly with especially those be it who have their own YouTube channels or podcasts, radio shows, right? And what happens is that if we put out content that could be, deemed quote unquote controversial, what happens is, if it doesn't get taken down automatically, what happens is it gets demonetized. All right, in which you might have to try to build shop somewhere else. Hey. But that's how it is, though, man. What a world we live in.
Overreacting here. I mean, look, what he said was inappropriate, was wrong. He's apologized. At what point do we say, okay, how about a little forgiveness? He's, been contrite. He went on Reverend Sharpton's show today. He realizes he did wrong. Do we keep punishing the guy?
He's crying.
Well, first let me say I didn't find him contrite on Reverend Sharpton's show. I found him arrogant. I found him somewhat belligerent.
What do you want? You want blood?
His "you people" comment to me really underscored the fact that he's not all that apologetic, and that deep beneath.
Well, again, just a few minutes earlier into this video, when he made that comment about "you people," and he was asked by, as we see here, Reverend Al Sharpton and a woman to his left, but on the screen here to his right, Mr. Imus specified it was regarding to those two. All right, he wasn't referring to all black people, bro. He wasn't doing that. So come on now.
Him is a severe character flaw that's directly connected
we
to
all
racism.
Character flaw.
Doctor, do you think...
Absolutely. And if your character flaws were uttered in such a way that they cause severe abuse to people in full public view on a daily basis, which some may argue,
do you know that anybody was really abused?
They should be fired.
Was anybody?
Well, it depends if you're thin-skinned. If you're soft, brittle, and just downright sensitive, then yeah, that can definitely be considered verbal abuse. No doubt.
Really abused here?
Absolutely. I think that's what we need to look at black women in their particular position in America. When they're referred to as hoes, when they're referred to as the B word on a constant basis, we need to challenge that. Not just when it comes from Don Imus, when it comes from anyone.
Right, now,
Good. Hey, okay, good. I can get on board with that, bro. Now that's a great point right there about the B word and the word hoes and stuff like that. Okay, I can get on board with that. But here's the thing: if you truly believe that, then a lot of this rap music out here that promotes the usage of those words and even words that are even worse than those two, that music should be outlawed, brother. How about that?
Wait, dude, but listen, if we start challenging that word, right, and we start to try to ban the word nigga and ban the word nappy-headed hoes, right? Let me ask you, how? Who's going to suffer in the long run? It ain't going to be white people. You don't say nappy-headed hoe on a regular basis in the street. I might. I say hoe, maybe not nappy. That's something new, something new for me.
But
hoe is not racial.
But with everything going on in the world, why are we fighting so vigorously to defend the right?
Before reacting, I saw in the comments that the comment that Colmes has made about hoe not being racial, that was that was like low key right there, right? And that's true. I mean, hoe is definitely not racial because, I mean, let's be real, not just modern day black women, but modern day white women, modern day Latina women, modern day Asian women, hell, even some modern day Arab hijab women out here, right? Many of them love being hoes, man. Right? So, and I don't say it to be derogatory or disrespectful, but I'm just saying it because that's what's very pervasive right now. Right? And these are the same ones, these women are the very same ones who claim to be objectified, right? When for the most part, they're objectifying themselves. Especially in cases like we see these rap music videos, like in the 90s, or pretty much music videos today. All right? With the likes of Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, right? And, the list goes on, man. The Kardashians, hey, you name it.
We got a lot. We got a lot of or hoes.
We got a lot of ground to cover.
Issue.
Not the least of which is their double standard. We're going to delve into that when we get back. We'll pick up this.
Why isn't there the same kind of outrage, let me ask you, in the black community when rappers and other people in the black community, athletes in the black community, defame and demean black women?
I am one of them
call
that
them worse
is
names than
outraged.
I ever did.
Another clip there of Don Imus from his appearance on Al Sharpton's radio show today. We now continue with Dr. Marc Lemont Hill. Armstrong Williams works with my friends over there at WWRL in New York, and Patrice O'Neal. Armstrong, he apologized. He's contrite. Did he say the right things, or was the apology, in your view, worse than what he initially said, as was suggested earlier here tonight?
Well, the guy's in a state of shock. He did not expect this. He's done this for so long. And another thing about Don Imus, I can never forget during the time of Hurricane Katrina that he was one of the few people who had a national audience in this country who spoke out and said, what is wrong with America? Why are they singling out these people for this kind of treatment and this kind of neglect? He said, there's only one conclusion that I can come to, is the fact that they have black faces. And this is not right. This is not who America is. And I got to tell you, I can't forget that. You can be outraged with him, and you should be outraged with him, but you got to take the man's life in balance. He's one of the few people who brought attention to the plight of those people in New Orleans, and they happen to be black. I mean, so it's easy to make someone out to be a racist. What he said was very racist, was very bigoted. But I look at the whole Don Imus, and he's done some good. We should be outraged. NBC and CBS did what they had to do.
And Dr. Hill, shouldn't we look at what's in somebody's heart and what their true intent is, and truly what they've done? He's got a camp. He helps kids. 10% of the kids at his camp are black.
Now, honestly, I don't even know that part about Don Imus in regards to Hurricane Katrina. And again, that's a great thing. That's a great thing he did. So, which is similar to some of the the great things that Donald Trump has done for us in the black community, right? Unemployment at an all-time low, pardoning Jack Johnson, reducing sentences for a number of 5,000 or so black men within the prison system, right? Again, like I said before, all those prison sentences were done as a result of our current president, Joe Biden, right, in regards to the hate crime bill. But yeah, that's where it all came from, man.
Black. I mean, you want to end the man's career over this comment?
I don't want to end his career. I don't want him on the street. I simply don't want him to have this particular job.
What job can he have?
Land on his feet.
What job can he have?
That's not my concern. What I'm saying is that this particular post that he has, let me finish this point. He made this point. He used his job irresponsibly, and he should be fired for it. Well, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he should never work again. If someone wants to hire him, that's their prerogative.
Then you'll pick at the next guy that he works for, the next person he works for. Patrice,
I'm just saying. I know funny. And I know if he had said nappy-headed athletes
That
or
would have been
nappy-headed
okay?
young women, you
Why is
go,
that okay?
why is no? It's not okay if he had said
We'd
that.
be just as offended.
Nappy-headed athlete would have been. Is he using?
I'm sorry to pause it, but it was a 1994 crime bill, not hate crime bill, but I mean, in some cases, if you want to call it a hate crime, then yeah, to a degree, because it does in regards to like minor offenses that were happening with a number of those black men, but that was like a whole generation's worth of black men who were locked up in prison because of that, man. So it just goes to show you when many of us claim that this whole system is rigged and is systemically racist and is systemically built to keep our people down. Yeah, I can agree. On one side, I can agree with that, but on the other, instead of looking at those that we claim to be the enemy, that being the Republican side, even though they're not, even though they definitely have their faults. We should more so start more and more looking at the very people who claim to be our friends, right? Who claim to be our benefactors, who claim to be all about brotherhood and sisterhood, right? And above all, the very people who claim to know what's best for you. Yes, those are the people that we should keep more and more so pointing our fingers at.
An adjective. I don't get that. Yeah. But to say nappy-headed hoe is so ridiculous. You know he was trying to be funny. Well, you know it.
I mean, you heard the tone of voice.
Imus
He was laughing. I mean, he didn't intend to hurt, and he realizes he was wrong, Armstrong. He knows he made a mistake. And as you said earlier, the free marketplace can decide whether or not this helps him or hurts him. Just pulling him off the air, stop other people from ever going over the line, which anybody in broadcast can do any moment of any day when you're in front of a live mic all the time.
But the problem is people cross the line every day. Anybody else other than people who have huge audiences and names could have said this, and they could have been of a different hue, and nothing would have been said. It would have not even made the radar screen. It's because of what Don Imus represents, and he just happens to be a white man in America. And they're the individuals in this country that cannot use racism in any form, in any kind of way. It's a double standard. Look,
hang on a second.
I don't want you to misinterpret my trying to defend him, but there is a double standard here.
Dr. Hill, I want to ask you this.
You know what? That right there is a big reason why what they call black privilege is very persistent right now, very prevalent. It's interesting too. We talk a lot about white privilege, but we hardly address black privilege, right? Why is that? That's kind of a mystery. Oh, I know the reason why. Because it goes against the narrative of painting all black people as victims, even though all of us are not. And honestly, in fact, a number of us out here, particularly the low lives and the degenerates within the inner cities, are the victimizers, right? Those branch right there of our people, right? But it ain't just us. Every race of people have their low lives and the degenerates who are victimizers. And the thing is, those very victimizers oftentimes attack, afflict, and in some cases, just flat out kill their own, right? That's why there's that notion of quote unquote what they call black on black crime, white on white crime. It's not really addressed publicly in the media, but I'm sure that's the case that it exists. And and other types of hate crimes that all races have to deal with in regards to their own. That's the case. Another thing too, going back, the fact that Don Imus does represent, Caucasian men who, for the most part, can't use racism. Definitely. Another point I want to bring out too is Patrice O'Neal. I remember there was an episode of what they call the Green Room that featured himself, the late Bob Saget, and the likes of Roseanne Barr. All right, and there was another female comedian on there. I can't quite remember her name. I'll tell you what. After I do this video, I'm gonna look it up and I'm gonna put it in the comment or description. When I upload this video. But Patrice basically said that 4 demographics of people are present when it comes to saying what you can say, what you really want to say. At the top are Black women. Number 2 is white women. Number 3 is us as Black men. And number 4 at the bottom are white men. And especially if they're straight, Christian, and conservative. Those are the branch that they definitely can't say anything, let alone use any racism whatsoever, or they'll be deemed as, a racist and a bigot. So this is this is definitely the condition of the battle right here, man. This is why, and you wonder why a lot of this stuff persists, man. It's just tribal nature.
This question. You want him fired from this job.
Absolutely.
All right. We know the history. The 2 people that are leading the effort now against Don Imus are the Reverend Jackson and the Reverend Al Sharpton. Now, we know in the case of the Reverend Jackson, we know his comments about Jews in New York. We know his admission about the treatment of food of certain customers when he used to, work at a restaurant. We know the white interloper comments of Al Sharpton. We know Al Sharpton said, if the Jews want to get it on, tell them to pin their yarmulkes back and come on over to my house. Have you ever asked for their firing?
Fire.
Oh, watching Patrice last time making me laugh. That's pretty good. That's a good one.
From in 1988, when Reverend Jackson made the comment about Hannity, he paid dearly for it. He also apologized.
I didn't ask you that. I asked, sir. Wait, Dr. Hill.
No, you're saying fired. Fired for what?
Asked, do you think they deserve to be on the national?
Uh-oh. Hey, careful, bro. You got your ass back in the corner, man. In a few moments, you're going to see Patrice step in and pretty much give that confirmation.
Scene leading the effort against Don Imus, considering their background?
Okay, that's a different question. Absolutely. Absolutely. This particular, I think
Doctor,
anyone
do you see what he's trying to do? That's what they do. He's trying to make us hypocrites. That's what I'm saying.
It's not about hypocrisy. It's about challenging someone who clearly spoke out in racist and sexist fashion. The issue here isn't Reverend Jackson, nor is it Reverend Sharpton. The person who should be under scrutiny here is Don Imus.
No. The people leading the effort. No. Here's the difference. If you're saying he should be fired, why shouldn't they be? Why shouldn't they, in your mind, be in the same category? If you can explain that to our audience, I'm all ears.
The same category as what they have both paid dearly for comments that they've made that they've regretted when
they're
they've
still out there protesting,
absolutely.
and they're still in the media. Nothing happened to them. There's been no impact negatively on their careers.
That's absolutely the same.
What do you want? You want to jump? Go ahead.
Yeah, because those men right there, along with others who are associated with them, have connections. All right. Because again, it should be it's common knowledge now that both Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson are 33-degree Freemasons. So even though, based on the evidence that they definitely said racist comments in the past, they're still going to be in the forefront with the bullhorns, right? Because again, they have their benefactors, right? The sponsors and those who are, overseeing them. So, like particularly those in the Boule, which both of them are definitely in the Boule, right? And of course, they're white Jewish overlords.
Because I see what you're doing.
What am I doing?
Because the seriousness of the doctor is what he's so. It's the fact is
you're saying the doctor's a hypocrite.
No, not a hypocrite. Tricky. But what I'm saying is
you over here celebrating, calling people hoes and thinking it's funny. To me, that's
stop it.
That's the issue.
Stop it. You're being too serious. First of all, when was nappy-headed hoe? Wait a minute. When was nappy-headed hoe ever a term that was subjugating to black folks.
No.
Nappy-headed hoe. When? Back in the 20s? During slavery?
Look, it is offensive, and Imus says himself it's offensive. Here's my question. Hang on a second, Doc. Patrice, in all seriousness here, if this is how Imus is going to be treated, what about the people leading the charge? Is it fair? You say, well, you're trying to create this. Is there hypocrisy?
Divide and conquer. No. That's why
I'm not dividing and conquer. I'm saying
to prevent it from being that, let him say what he wants so I can say what I want.
You want everybody to say everything. You don't care.
Yes.
All right, but that's you're being, real and honest. But I'm saying.
There you go. Exactly. Honesty. That's what Patrice lived for, man. To be honest. All right. Hey, freedom of speech for everybody, right? I mean, it's a shame that he had his untimely death, right? But if he was still alive today, I can only imagine what the world or America would be like if he was president. Oh, that's definitely fun to think about.
Are they being hypocritical?
And sexist.
Are they being hypocritical? Hang on a second.
There's nothing hypocritical.
I'm asking Patrice.
Look, man, if you tell somebody something, how to say something, and you have made mistakes in your life, I can't use hypocrite. I gotta go back to the black community, Sean.
We're gonna pick it up right there. Don't go.
We continue now with Dr. Marc Lemont Hill, Armstrong Williams, and Patrice O'Neal. All right, Dr. Hill, I want to go back to this issue we were discussing earlier. The two people leading the charge, the Reverend Jackson and the Reverend Al Sharpton, and they both have a history of saying outrageous things. I
don't know if I'd say outrageous. I don't.
You don't think Jaime Town's outrageous?
I think it's an unfortunate statement. He apologized for it. He explained the context. It's a problematic statement. I'm not trying to support the statement. I'm saying he's apologized. That was 19 years ago. You don't think the term white interloper, sir, leading into that incendiary event that took place on Freddy's at 100?
And also too, I mentioned that both Sharpton and Jackson are both Boule members, right? They're in these fraternities. As I said, Marc Lemont Hill himself is in a fraternity too. I think it's Kappa Alpha Psi, right? Yeah, one of those fraternities, definitely Kappa, right? So he can't really throw those two under the bus, because even though they might be in different fractions, they're still a part of the fraternities nonetheless. So he can't just throw his own frat brothers under the bus. So hey. To each his own.
125th. You don't think white interlopers offensive and racist?
It's interesting that you're saying that these people didn't pay a penalty, yet 19 years later, we're still talking about the comments. Clearly, they are paying a public penalty. That's the same thing I want to see happen to Don Imus. I'm just trying
to understand. You want this guy fired, but it's acceptable for the people that have this history to lead this effort against this guy. And I'll tell you what I find it. Look, Patrice and I were talking in the break. Either everybody's wrong and everybody gets condemned. You'll only condemn Don Imus. Will you condemn the Reverend Sharpton and the Reverend Jackson for their incendiary remarks over the years?
Absolutely. Anyone who makes a hurtful or incendiary comment.
No, I said specifically Reverend Jackson and Al Sharpton. Will you condemn them tonight as you have Don Imus?
I'm saying anyone and everyone. Yes, I think making.
You're having a hard time with this. You really? I think
he's too distinguished.
I think you're having a hard time keeping the focus on Don Imus.
I think
you're making these scapegoats.
The difference is I'm consistent.
Diversionary tactics.
I'm saying it's wrong for everybody.
Sharpton instead of Don Imus.
No, I'm not, because it's wrong for everybody.
It has no bearing on what Don. It has no bearing on what Don Imus did.
No, I'm saying it's wrong, but I'm also saying I think it's hypocritical. The guys that are leading the way have a history of making equally offensive remarks, but they seem to be getting a pass. And now, in an ironic sense,
if Jesse Jackson got a pass, we wouldn't be talking about it 19 years later.
Oh, but you're having a hard time saying that it's appropriate for this guy to be leading the effort. You don't find any irony there or any hypocrisy there?
Well, you're going to be using OJ for the next 50 years to talk about, to compare it to any other white guy who does something.
You said something in the break, though, and I think you're right. Either everybody's wrong or everybody gets to say what they want.
Everybody says what, because the word nigga does not mean what it did in 1920, no matter what you say and when you say it.
But you and I had this debate once before. That word is meant to hurt. Period.
And it could hurt. Yes. But you just saying it doesn't hurt me, because that implies that you're better than me.
What are you pointing at me for?
Because if I call you a cracker, it never meant nothing to you. It was almost like, thank you.
I have known you for
That's a very good point right there, because whether in regards to the N word, the word the word nigga or cracker, or any other derogatory term, some important thing to keep in mind is, while it's important, depending on who you are, it's important to have thick skin, because there are definitely going to be times in our lives when like it could be like random or out of the blue, where we're going to be hit with certain terms like that, even if even if we're asking for it or not, right? And and again, nobody can really offend you if you don't give them permission to do so. That's a very important thing to remember.
For a lot of years, for a short time now. We've debated it, but we've known each other. You could basically say anything to me, and I know everything you're saying is meant in humor.
Not everything, but I know how to.
To me,
by the way, that's funny. Not true when I talk to him. But let me ask you that.
but you don't get to be the arbiter of what's funny. Well, how can you all be the arbiter of what's funny for black
Patrice
women?
No, I am.
But here's the main question.
Let
me get Armstrong
based on what you said tonight, bro, I don't find you the arbiter either.
Armstrong.
Yeah, but you're being an arbiter just for, like, they painting you into a corner. You don't even realize that your whole seriousness is messing you up, and now you gotta commit to saying that Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson are hypocrites. You had to commit.
Cheesing and soft shoe and talking about how this isn't a serious.
This is where the problem is.
This is a serious
issue. It's now. This is what they do.
Who's they?
They make us fight.
Who's they?
Who does?
When he goes soft shoe, that's more insulting to me than nappy-headed hoe. That's when black people call each other words like that, soft shoe, house nigga. Get out of here. You know better than that, Doc.
Wow. Before reacting to this, at first, I didn't know what that term soft shoe meant, but I took the opportunity and I looked up that word on a site called urbandictionary.com. And I found that the definition of soft shoe is a large black genius that conquers somebody who opposes them. Right? That's one definition. And another definition is a potential cult leader. And that's that's ironic, because, despite the fact that Patrice has been, for the most part, has been dead for 12, going on 13 years, he definitely has cult-like status, to where people are still uploading his videos, some cases regularly, and other cases just out of the blue, right? So he definitely still has influence, even to this day, right? So that, now for that first definition, I can definitely understand how it could come off as being offensive, even if accurate. But for the second definition, it's just more so ironic, as opposed to it just being, hurtful.
Sir, the issue here for me tonight is Don Imus's comments, and all we've done is divert the
I think the issue, Dr. Hill, is who
people.
decides what's offensive. What's offensive? And who is it offensive to? And who's getting hurt? And who is the arbiter?
Good question. Maybe the ones who are claiming to be the arbiters of what's offensive are the very ones who, at one point in history, claimed that they had tolerance for everyone. Right? But it's now gotten to the point where they've pretty much performed a 180, hell, if not a 360, on that whole premise right there.
Arbiter of what offensive is.
Why don't we talk to the aggrieved people? No one asked that question.
And if they're not offended, you want to give Don Imus his job back? If they're not offended?
When Mel Gibson made his comments, clearly Jewish people were offended, and they should have been.
I didn't hear you call to say that they should step aside.
When Bill Maher lost his job with ABC,
we
people responded because people were offended. Why can't black women be just as compelling a victim?
Thank you, Patrice. Good to see you. Thanks for.
All right, so that's for that video right there, and I thought it was a pretty good sit down. It was very interesting, entertaining, particularly on Patrice's part. Honestly, in some cases, embarrassing for the doctor. right? And then definitely I can appreciate the nuance of Armstrong Williams, right? And pretty much, I saw this in the comments, but out of all the people involved in this interview, right, Patrice was definitely by far the winner. All right, because he understood how the anchors were trying to, like you say, trying to call out Marc Lemont Hill for his hypocrisy by not condemning Sharpton and Jackson like to do Imus, right? Particularly on that part, and I can definitely understand. I can definitely see how Patrice tried to, you know, help Mark out, but his pride wouldn't let him, right? And of course he was trolling the man, but still, right? So yeah, man, he was definitely sharp, quick witted. He was definitely a hell of a social commentator amongst all things, and amongst just being a comedian, he was the whole package, man. And there are definitely people saying that Patrice could be considered the greatest comedian of them all. And hey, I can't argue with that because he's definitely up there with the likes of a Richard Pryor, of a George Carlin, of a Bernie Mac, right? Of a Dave Chappelle today, a Bill Burr, Eddie Griffin, Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, all the greats, all of them. Don Rickles, right? Rodney Dangerfield, you name them. The whole list goes on. But anyway, that's it for that video. Again, rest in peace to Patrice O'Neal and and to what could have been. So I'm out. Peace.